Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Ficaloro, editor of Seattle Bike Blog, and I'm here with Anne-Marije Rook.
Hi,
And
everyone.
uh, and we're going to talk about a the fact that it is the year 2020, and the largest cycling event on the planet is men's only. And Anne-Marije, who formerly worked at Cascade Bicycle Club, is now living in Portland and is going to ride the entire tour a day before the men. And so I was hoping, I guess, how did this come up? How did you get into this?
So there's a group of, well, it started with one French woman about 5 years ago who decided, the time was now to also have a women's Tour de France. And so she just wrote it herself, the whole thing. And then the next year she had some friends join and then more friends. And eventually we are now 5 years later and there are three different women's teams riding it. So I got a French team, an international team, and a Dutch team. And I was approached by a documentary filmmaker about how it is that we're in 2020 and there's no women's Tour de France and what's women's cycling like and everything. And then she was like, wait a minute, aren't you Dutch? Don't you ride a bike? And I was like, yeah, kind of. She's like, you should come ride with this Dutch team. So I did. I decided to go and join them because why not?
Right.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, as a cyclist, it's a total dream to ride the tour, obviously. And as a cycling journalist, especially a women's cycling journalist, I feel very strongly about equal opportunities in sport. And the fact that there is no grand tour for women is kind of outrageous in this day and age.
Yeah, and so you're planning to write about it?
Yeah, we try to drum up some interest before, as we're doing now. And we'll be, blogging and vlogging and doing the whole thing just to raise awareness about the fact that we're doing it, but more than anything, like the fact that there is no Grand Tour for women, and also just to inspire people that they can do these things. I think the reason there is no Women's Tour de France is complex, obviously, but it's mostly around the idea that there's no money in it, like for the organizers, and a lot of people think that women just can't do it. And so we're going to prove that even amateurs like ourselves, who are women, that we can definitely do it.
And I mean, obviously the men have tons of financial and physical support all along the way, and I guess I'm assuming you do not have that, just handed to you anyway. How are you? I mean, it must be expensive to do the whole tour. I mean, that's a pretty long, arduous ride. How do you fund all your support that you need and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it is very long. So it's 21 stages over the course of 23 days. There's a couple rest days in there. It's 2,200 miles, 164,000 feet of elevation. So we're going to be on the bike like 8, maybe 10 hours a day for 21 days. And we're raising funds through a GoFundMe page, just doing some crowdfunding to get support from people. And then we've got some sponsors lined up already. And we're looking for more sponsors, obviously, because it's a lot of lodging in very busy French towns, as you can imagine, during the tour. Support vehicles and food, so much food. As you can imagine, that's going to take so many calories to sustain us. So yeah, we've got some sponsors, fortunately, already, and the rest we're still looking for. We've got 10 women on our team, and like I said, there will be 30 women total. There's also a documentary crew that's following us, and we've got professional staff and a photographer with us. Of course, all of these people are doing it either on a volunteer basis or we're trying to offer a small stipend to our staff that's helping us. So like a soigneur, a nutritionist, and the photographer, they all get a small stipend.
Great. And I mean, I assume that roads will be open. I mean, like on the actual tour, everything's closed course and everything, but it won't be that way for you.
Yeah, they'll be setting up the course during that time. And yeah, so we'll be very careful. We also are inviting people to come with us. Since this is not a closed event, we actually want to get more people out there. And so we invite people to come ride a day with us and see what it's like and what it takes. And so if you happen to be in France and you want to come ride along, that info is also on our website. But
Awesome.
yeah.
That's great. And
Yeah, it's mostly just about inspiring people to go chase these dreams and to just tell the story of women's cycling and the fact that there is no Grand Tour. And we're not even mentioning, the whole salary and lack of funding in women's cycling in general. This is just about the opportunity to even go and ride it.
right. Well, yeah. I mean, the men get paid to do it, and you have to pay your own way, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well, I
inherently
mean, we're doing it obviously as non-racers, but even
yes.
professional racers, they all have 50% of the peloton has a second job because they can't do
Hmm.
it. So, yeah, we're trying to get the word out while letting our legs do the talking as well.
Right. And have you had any response from, uh, the organizers of the tour? Like, I mean, obviously they know that this is happening. It's been happening for years, but
Yeah, yeah. They haven't always been the biggest fan over the last 5 years. They've tried to sue a team before for doing it for using the word tour in their advertising material.
hmm,
The organizers ASO hasn't been very good towards women's racing, and they don't particularly love the idea of us being out there and riding the roads and promoting this aspect of their or lack of
right.
their race.
Yeah. Are there organizations that are working towards having a women's tour, like kind of like in an official capacity, where someone who can't, participate could, I don't know, sign up and learn more, or send a letter
Yeah,
to.
yeah. I mean, professional cycling has basically the closest thing to a union that they have is called the Cyclist Alliance. And they, in addition to fighting for equal opportunities, they also try to make the whole sport more professional. So offering, better wages, help with contracts, parental leave, health insurance, all the basic things that most jobs come with and that are still completely lacking in women's cycling. There isn't even a minimum wage yet, so they're still fighting for the basics. But
Right.
equal opportunities is one of those. I mean, when it comes to visibility and representation in sport, especially in cycling, you can't think of a bigger race than the Tour.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like so many other bicycle races do have women's events. It's weird that the biggest one is the one that doesn't. I mean, I guess, well, how common is it to not have a women's event at all? I mean, is it becoming, it seems from my perspective it's becoming less and less common, but maybe I'm all wrong.
So they actually, there used to be a Grand Tour during the Tour de France, Le Grand Boucle, and the Tour de Féminine, and organizers said there wasn't enough interest, so they canned it. And now they have what's called La Course by Le Tour, which is a one-day, I hate to say it, but like circus show for women. They're like, on the last day of the tour, women, you get to go ride around the Champs-Élysées, something small. They've done it for the last couple of years. That was their token, they're not to women.
Hmm.
And a lot of us just don't think that's enough.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and they put on a lot of races, men's and women's races. And they've, over the last few years, come around to adding women's races to their one-day races. But yeah, the big missing one is still the Tour. And they do have the Giro, the women's 10-day tour. It happens to be at the same time as the men's Tour de France. So that's also a bit of a conflict of interest there.
Right.
To have, the Grand Tour for women at the same time as the men's.
Right. And yeah, I guess what are you doing to get ready? It
Yeah.
seems pretty grueling.
Yeah, it's pretty daunting. I mean, I've done some crazy things on bikes, but never 21 centuries in a row. I mean, it's like basically going to doing the SDP over and over and over again, with a lot more climbing than that. But I rode my first century solo yesterday as a training ride, and that'll be one of many I'll be doing in the next couple of months. Just trying to get as many miles in as I can. And Portland is a little bit hillier, or I mean, there's hills around more so than Seattle, so longer climbs. So I'll be definitely going uphill quite a bit.
Great.
Yeah, it's just riding as much as I can. I mean, unlike a professional, I have a full-time job, so I have to fit in what I can on Saturday and Sunday and
Right.
trying to get it done. But As I said, it's more anything. It's like a publicity stunt. So we're not racing it. So I don't have to be in top shape. But yeah, I'll be spending a lot of time on my bike.
You still have to be in pretty good shape to survive it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not necessarily the legs even, it's the little things, right? After 8-10 hours on the bike, like the shoulders, the hands, the
Yeah.
seat bones, like all of it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that it's just baffling to think how many like just calories we're gonna need.
Yep.
And unfortunately it's gonna come in the form of, well, not French cheeses, but bars.
Right.
Lots and lots of bars and
Right.
far less appealing food.
Right. So you said you're an amateur. So what do you do for a day job?
Well, I work in marketing. I work with various different brands in the industry, one of which is Colorado Classic. And they actually flipped the script in that they canceled their men's race and are only doing a women's race, which is unique and really, really cool. And I love helping them with that and their mission to become one of the best women's races in the world. And not just a race and talk, but they also are really big on talking about the inequalities in women's cycling and promotion and really focusing on the exposure part of women's sports, which is lacking. And so they offer free coverage, really good prize money, and support to get the riders to the race as well.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah, they're definitely a model that hopefully will be adopted in the sport more widely.
Great. Yeah, and so you'll be writing about it. How do people find your work?
Yeah, it'll be on social media. It's AM Rook. And then I have a website, amrook.com as well, where I'll be writing about it and taking videos. And we've got some, depending on our contracts with our sponsors, we'll be providing some videos for different outlets and just telling our story as much as we can. And then obviously there'll be a documentary maybe in the next year or so.
Great. Does it have a title yet, or how would people?
No. We'll
just have to.
Unfortunately, that'll be a follow-up.
Okay. Yeah.
After the tour. Did she survive? Yeah. I am riding my bike from Seattle to Portland in one go on April like 4th or 5th, whatever that weekend is, just to test the legs. And since I'm going to be in Seattle anyway, I figured I would just ride home.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to come for a bike ride, join me on April 4th as I ride from Seattle to Portland. Not even that great of a course. It's just purely out of the fact that I need miles, and I'm happen to be there that day. So it's like, well, I'll ride home. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about this, and good luck.
Thank you. I'm going to need it.
Yeah.